This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The province is launching a critical incident investigation after a man died waiting for care at a Winnipeg emergency room Tuesday. The tragedy is already drawing parallels to Brian Sinclair's death in 2008. After public outcry, there was an inquest and recommendations were made. And yet, as the CBC's Ian Fraser reports, it seems people are still being ignored.
I come across a lot of cases that are similar.
Dr. Barry LaValle says he already knows what the investigation into the death of a patient who died after 8 hours in a Winnipeg hospital waiting room will say. He believes it won't examine what other factors might have been in play, like the man's race or socioeconomic status.
It's easy to let go of your responsibility when they're considered less in society. And I think that's what happened.
On Wednesday, the health minister ordered the death be treated a critical incident. Yuzoma Asaguera says health leaders are investigating.
I want to reassure Manitobans this is being treated with the highest level of urgency, highest level of seriousness, and we're working very hard and very quickly to make sure that we can learn and take the appropriate action moving forward.
Officials say a middle-aged man died at Health Sciences Centre while waiting for help that never came. He arrived by ambulance shortly after midnight Tuesday. He was assessed, taken to the waiting room, and shortly before 8 a.m., staff noticed his condition getting worse. Sometime after, he was pronounced dead. For LaValle, this tragedy is all too familiar. He cherishes this drawing of Brian Sinclair, who died after languishing 34 hours in the same ER waiting room in 2008. LaValle was part of the group that explored how racism impacted Sinclair's death. In this case, he doesn't want health officials to simply lay the blame on an overcrowded ER.
You can't blame people for being poor and blame them that the healthcare system is falling apart because we have a lot of poor people. That is absolutely unethical and absurd.
No identifying details about the man has been released, but LaValle says this patient was clearly ignored.
The confluence of context for this one man was that he needed some help. If you couldn't hear him asking for help, then you're the problem.
Asaguera expects to get a preliminary report within the next couple of weeks. The PC Health Critic says that report should be made public.
The Premier has said in the past that it's important that Manitobans have the confidence that when they go to the ER, they're going to get the care that they need. Restoring that confidence will mean making the details of that investigation public and even more importantly, an action plan to deal with what went wrong.
Asaguera, though, has promised that the final report will be released. Ian Fraser, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, this patient's death is once again, as you heard, putting overcrowding and long healthcare waits back in the spotlight. But this time it's also calling into question a lack of resources for the city's homeless population. Well, you heard officials have not released any patient information. HSC's chief operating officer says the ER was crowded, including dealing with a number of people who were seeking shelter amid the cold weather. That was a factor. One of the city's homelessness advocates says many who live on the street or are part of Winnipeg's vulnerable population end up at hospitals because they have nowhere else to go.
They're telling us that they don't feel safe going to downtown shelters, or depending on where you're homeless. And don't forget, we have homelessness spread out geographically across the entire city. So if you're homeless down South Pemmican, it's not that easy to get to 190 Disraeli or to Main Street Project. So they find themselves, a safe, warm space to be, and nobody's going to remove anybody from a hospital waiting room who says they're there to see a doctor.
Marion Willis says there continues to be a lack of wraparound supports for homelessness and addiction issues in the city, particularly when it comes to 24/7 shelters. She adds the ones that are available are again overcrowded and often chaotic, making people believe them to be unsafe. We have breaking news this evening. Just moments ago, the Manitoba First Nation Police Service announced the Chief of Police has died. MFNPS says Chief Doug Paulson's home caught fire early this morning. While crews from Portage la Prairie worked to put that fire out, remains were found inside. The service says while the investigation is still ongoing, it's believed Paulson was the victim. A Manitoba man living with cerebral palsy is calling for changes to the province's program for low-income people with disabilities. CBC's Zubina Ahmed brings you more.
Alex Litwin has lived with cerebral palsy for his entire life. He depends on benefits through the Manitoba Supports for Persons with Disabilities, or MSPD. In the past, whenever he needed assistance, he could contact his assigned case worker. Due to a recent change, he no longer has one. Litwin told CBC that the province has now introduced a team approach system. This was a shock. I had emailed 3 different workers and every email came back saying that they had retired or had a new position. I felt so lost. Now there's a central email and phone number for participants to use. Since the change, Litwin says he has had trouble reaching the department. Recently, one of his bills wasn't paid for the past 3 months. I have emailed them several times for different things. No reply. I have called the number, had to hang up after an hour of waiting in the queue. There were still 47 people ahead of me. Not having an EIA case worker has really affected my life in a negative way, because I'm now just a number, not a person. David Cron is the executive director of Cerebral Palsy Association. He says the change has caused problems for Manitobans living with disabilities.
That individuality where you get to know the worker, they get to know you, you build up a bit of a relationship, a bit of trust, right? And so now every time Alex calls in, or any member, they have to go through their whole history every time, and it's exhausting, and people don't want to tell their story every time they call in for something.
The province did not address these concerns. In a statement, they confirmed that the MSPD transitioned to a team-based approach in early December 2024. They said there was no reduction in staffing. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Protesters are continuing to occupy a small blockade at a privately owned forest in St. Norbert. The coalition to save LeMay Forest is still at the site despite an injunction granted to the developer. CBC's Felicia Adam has more.
I'm here in front of a blockade set up by residents in this St. Norbert community more than a week ago. Protesters are continuing to block access for developers wanting to go into LeMay Forest. This despite a court order earlier this week, which asks them to stop interrupting work happening on the privately owned land. Louise May, a resident in the area, has been vocal in her protest against the work being done in the forest. She says there needs to be more than just a court order to get rid of them.
We got word from the lawyer from the Tokal Development Group that they would be here this morning to continue cutting trees. We, of course, obviously don't want that to happen.
John Winthrop, a planner representing the property's ownership group, says they tried to access the land 3 times but were stopped.
The judge made it clear you can't block and deny people entry into private property. And that's exactly what these protesters did today.
Last week, an offer was made to buy the land for $5.2 million, but Winthrop says that figure is too low. Meanwhile, City Councillor Russ Wyatt is suggesting the city should just expropriate or take back the land. But Mayor Scott Gillingham says he's not in favor of expropriation. Instead, he says the situation and its solution requires careful thinking.
My first concern is that it seems like every time a politician opens their mouth about LeMay Forest, the price seems to go up. And so I think we all need to be very cautious about our steps here.
For now, protesters here say they will continue to fight against trees coming down in LeMay Forest and will challenge the court order. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
CBC's Riley Laychuk in now. Riley, it was beautiful out today in comparison to what we've dealt with.
Yeah, for sure, Brittany. We're looking at temperatures warming up as we get through the evening hours into the overnight period tonight. Look at some of these temperatures in the west already at the freezing mark in the Paw and Lynn Lake. -4 is for Swan River and Dauphin, -10 in Winnipeg. We've been around -10 through the afternoon hours today in Winnipeg. Temperatures will continue to go up through the Red River Valley as we get through the evening hours tonight. As expected, that risk of freezing rain, at least according to radar, materializing in the Dauphin, the Parkland region. That's where we have the best chance of seeing some freezing rain tonight. Overnight in Winnipeg, periods of light snow. That's a typo. We're not looking at a -21 temperature overnight. More like -7 overnight tonight. -4 by the morning hours tomorrow. Periods of snow ending. Not to say we won't see some lingering flurries through the afternoon, but some sunny breaks and the temperature, Brittany, up to -2. Your full forecast coming up.
Minus single digits.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, a Winnipeg housing program under scrutiny. More on that straight ahead. A Winnipeg City Councillor is demanding answers around a housing program he says is shrouded in secrecy. St. Vital Councillor Brian Mays has filed a Freedom of Information request for a progress report on the Housing Accelerator Fund. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
Winnipeg hopes to build thousands of new houses over the next few years, using more than $120 million from the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund. Last month, the city sent a report to the federal government, updating it on the progress made in the first year of the program. But St. Vital Councillor Brian Mays says when he asked to see the report, city staff told him it's up to the feds to release it.
For all I know, we're doing a great job with the money that's come in, but I don't know that because I don't have it. And this whole program, this whole accelerator seems to be very secretive. And
$12 million of that funding is slated to pay for needed infrastructure upgrades to support those houses. Mays wants the report before council votes on that plan later this month, and says nothing in the agreement with the feds prevents the city from releasing it.
Out of frustration, I'm filing this because I want to see what the numbers are, and we have another vote.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says there's nothing secret about the program, and council got an update at their meeting last month.
I know that report is imminent. I know our staff is meeting with CMHC. I think, quite frankly, council's going to get that report long before a FIPA would ever get processed anyways.
Council is set to vote on the infrastructure plan at its meeting on January 30th. A separate hearing on allowing fourplexes and buildings up to 4 stories was supposed to happen in March, but council voted in December to delay that hearing until June. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Premier Wab Kinew talked trade and economic opportunities with North Dakota's new governor. Kinew, along with the province's trade minister, attended Republican Governor Kelly Armstrong's first State of the State event Tuesday. In a statement, Kinew congratulated Armstrong on his new role and expressed Manitoba's commitment to border security as well as cracking down on drug trafficking. This comes amid threats from incoming U.S. President Donald Trump to slap heavy tariffs on Canadian imports. CBC News is launching a new series on immigration called Welcome to Canada. A survey commissioned by CBC found several newcomers face difficulty in landing jobs. Many say they're not working in their field of expertise. Vanessa Lee takes a closer look at the medical industry and internationally trained doctors who say they face a number of barriers.
It's the sign of an ailing system with no overnight cure. 6.5 million Canadians don't have a family doctor. And this pool of physicians is ready and waiting to contribute their skills.
A lot of us, international medical doctors, we are willing to work hard and to do what it takes just to get to our final goal.
Ismenda Ramirez has worked as a family doctor in the Dominican Republic. After moving to Canada, she spent countless hours again studying to become a doctor here. During this time, she has worked at McDonald's and is currently a medical assistant.
Many of us doesn't find jobs, so I was grateful for that.
Despite passing her Canadian medical exams, Ramirez hasn't been able to land a residency, a crucial stage where doctors gain hands-on experience. A major issue is that lack of residency spots. Last year, 95% of graduates from Canadian schools landed a placement, but only 42% of international medical graduates were successful. That means 931 didn't get a placement. Advocates say more funding is needed, but
in order to put more people into a residency program, you have to have more people there to be the mentors. And so I think that is a significant bottleneck.
Another complication, all 13 provinces and territories have separate licensing requirements.
Even me as the president of the Canadian Medical Association, I find it challenging to understand what the different options are and how they work.
An alternate path, something called a practice-ready assessment, is an option in 9 provinces. The first step, candidates are evaluated under the supervision of a physician for at least 12 weeks. But here's the catch. To qualify for the program, they must have recently worked as a doctor, forcing some to go abroad.
It's a big challenge because there are lots of things going back home. It's not safe.
Ogeni Fego Akpomi had to go back to Nigeria last year to get that recent experience.
To me, I just feel we're letting talents waste.
In Quebec and Ontario, advocacy groups tell us there are more than 3,500 international medical graduates. The vast majority are not working as physicians. There are fears doctors will simply leave if changes aren't made to make the process more simple and transparent. Vanessa Lee, CBC News, Toronto.
Riley's back in now. And Riley, it felt practically balmy outside today compared to what we've seen. And I was overdressed for the day because I know I listened to you, but I overdressed because it's winter and then I found myself taking layers off.
I'll say, get ready for an emotional roller coaster of temperatures is what I've been calling it for the next week.
That's winter in Manitoba.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yesterday we were talking about art creations at the end of the show last night, and Bill Wary sent in a photo for us.
Yes, have a look at this. Bill says his sister Bonnie made this with scraps of fabric. It replicates the brick bungalow that he bought on Sherbourne Street.
Love it. Amazing.
Love
Thank you
seeing
so
your
much.
artwork. Yeah, thanks for sending that in. Thanks for watching. Let's get into this emotional roller coaster of temperatures I was talking about. And here's a look at the 10-day temperature trend. This gives us a good look at what that looks like. So yeah, we're looking at another warm day tomorrow, warmer than we saw today. But then look at what happens. We dip below seasonal once again to start next week. And then we're up again and way down again by the time we get to the middle of the month. So we're in for a bit of a bumpy ride, temperature-wise at least, for the next, I don't know, a couple of weeks or so here in Manitoba. Looking at what's ahead, though, we do have, as I was talking about last night, a warm front traveling along an area of low pressure, pretty weak area of instability. So this will bring some periods of light snow to southern Manitoba overnight tonight. Really not talking about an accumulating snow, which I'll get into, but certainly looking at some light snow through the overnight hours through southern and central Manitoba, pushing off into northwestern Ontario by the time we get into the morning hours tomorrow. Behind that, a mostly cloudy sky, not to say we won't see a few peaks of sunshine tomorrow across southern Manitoba, and even a few lingering flurries. I think even into the afternoon hours, we'll see that chance that we could see a few more snowflakes really across southern Manitoba. A little more substantial clearing comes our way on Friday with some sunny breaks of the afternoon again, and then we prepare for our next weather maker, which is a low moving out of Alberta. At this point, the forecast models have been pushing this south of the border, clipping west, man, but I do think Winnipeg, as we get into the day on Saturday, we have fairly good chance of seeing some flurries at least through the day on Saturday through the Red River Valley. In terms of accumulation, this takes us out to supper time on Friday. Yeah, really traced to maybe a couple of centimeters locally, but generally, I think when you wake up in the morning tomorrow in the Winnipeg area, the Red River Valley, we're looking at a good dusting of snow at least. But prepare, because look at the winds. We could see some blowing snow, some visibility concerns, maybe some icy highways, especially as those temperatures climb close to the freezing mark as we get through the day on Thursday. 30 gusting 50 through the Portage La Prairie, Morden, Winkler area. Winnipeg, I've got winds tomorrow, northwest 20 gusting to 40. So a bit of a breezy one tomorrow, and again, another breezy day along the Hudson Bay coast with winds gusting up to 60 through the afternoon hours tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, your wake-up temperature is a far cry from what we've seen the last few mornings. -3s, -4s in the west, -4 by the morning in Winnipeg, -1 in Morden, Winkler first thing in the morning tomorrow. Up to -2 in Winnipeg, a few lingering flurries. There's that chance of flurries I had on Saturday, Brittany, and then we're plunging back down into the deep freeze again for Sunday and Monday of next week.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
Welcome.
We need to take another quick break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. More to come after this. Stay with us. A number of cabinet ministers say they're considering a bid to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister and party leader. But one high-profile Liberal says he won't be in the running. Ashley Burke has the latest on how the leadership race is shaping up.
On his way into caucus, but out of office, Justin Trudeau meeting with his MPs as the field of his possible successors starts to narrow. Trudeau's new second-in-command says Liberals across the country are encouraging him to run, but he's decided not to.
Last night, and then after sleeping on it this morning, I decided that the most important thing I should do over the next few months is my job as Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs.
A decision Dominic LeBlanc says came down to Donald Trump and his tariff threat.
I will be solely focused on the real economic threat.
The Foreign Affairs Minister says she's considering a leadership bid, but said she's also preoccupied with what's unfolding south of the border.
I very much know that I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs at a time where it's extremely difficult with the American administration, the incoming one. And so that's why I'll continue my reflection.
Three other cabinet ministers are also considering running.
I think it's important that we have a candidate who understands the whole country.
Well, I've been consistent that I'm seriously considering a bid for the leadership.
I want to ensure that I have a sufficient amount of support to be competitive in the race.
Trudeau's former Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, also viewed as a top contender. She's not saying anything publicly about her intentions, but privately is making calls. In a stunning move, she resigned in December after Trudeau tried to replace her as finance minister and offer her another portfolio tied to Canada-US relations. But that backfired and became a pivotal moment that led to insurmountable internal pressure for Trudeau to resign.
I had really hoped that she would agree to continue as my deputy prime minister and take on one of the most important files that not just this government but this country is facing. But she chose otherwise.
Trudeau will meet with the Liberals' national executive tomorrow to talk about how the leadership race will unfold. It will be up to the party to decide how it chooses its next leader and start figuring out what the rules will be. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
We have more reaction after Donald Trump threatened to use economic force to make Canada the 51st U.S. state. Federal officials here say it's not funny anymore, and U.S. Democrats see it as the president-elect trying to distract from his economic promises. Chris Reyes has the details.
Yet another image on President-elect Donald Trump's social media feed, sending a clear message of his intentions for Canada. The post comes after Trump doubled down on his pitch to make Canada the 51st state at a press conference from his Florida home on Tuesday. The reaction has been coming in fast and furious. The Liberals are punching back hard.
When President-elect Trump talks, we need to listen, and we need to take him very seriously. I never take his threats lightly. At the same time, we can't take the bait. I think we're extremely strong as a country. I think our economy is strong. I think our people are strong, and I think we will never back down.
Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, has been hitting the American talk circuit to push back against the idea, but also to propose a stronger union between the U.S. and Canada.
I love the U.S., I love Americans, and I get it. You know, President-elect Trump is a real estate tycoon. He's made billions, but that property's not for sale. As simple as that.
Trump supporters are not letting up. Elon Musk responded to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's post, saying there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would ever be a part of the U.S. Musk wrote, "Girl, you're not the governor of Canada anymore, so it doesn't matter what you say." One Democrat called Trump's proposals a distraction.
We are not going to take Greenland by force. We are not going to get Canada as the 51st state. We are not going to rename the Gulf of Mexico. So why is the president talking about that? What we're talking about here are things that are never going to happen. They're shiny things. They're little bits of tin foil and fireworks designed to distract us.
Trump has threatened massive tariffs on Canadian goods if Canada doesn't become a part of the U.S. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Outgoing top U.S. diplomat Antony Blinken says the world shouldn't waste a lot of time on Trump's remarks about Greenland. On Tuesday, the president-elect said he would not rule out using military force to take over the Danish territory. Chris Brown has more on the reaction to those Trump comments.
Donald Trump says he wants to make Greenland's riches American property. And like Canadians, people there are struggling to understand how serious to take his threat.
Kunne du tænke dig at blive amerikaner?
Would you like to become an American? Asked the reporter.
Jeg kan ikke lide dem.
Not me. I don't want that. You can visit us, she says, but nothing else.
We need it for national security. That's for the free world.
Trump stunned the world by suggesting Denmark should turn the giant island over. And if not, he could take it by force. Arriving in Copenhagen Wednesday, Greenland's PM Mutebe Oliu called Trump's comments serious and said Greenland belongs to Greenlanders. Denmark's foreign minister gave a cautious response. I don't think we're in a foreign policy crisis, said Lars Rasmussen. I see a president on his way into the White House who has a heightened focus on the Arctic. But Trump's remarks implying using force against a NATO ally and unilaterally redrawing national borders have rattled Europeans. Every country must adhere to the inviolability of borders, said Germany's chancellor. Trump's son, Don Jr., flew into Nuuk for a few hours on Tuesday, presumably to underscore his dad's seriousness. This Danish analyst says until Trump actually makes an official move, caution from the Danish government is likely wise.
They've been extremely diplomatic in their response and emphasizing that we need to keep calm and maintain friendships and alliances and not disrupt them.
Greenland's 57,000 mainly indigenous people were already in the midst of an emotional debate over their island's future, with many determined to end its colonial status. But few appear to consider swapping Danish rulers for American ones as a serious option. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
4 wildfires are raging in the Los Angeles area. Thousands of residents have escaped from burning homes amid powerful winds and giant plumes of smoke. Several more have been ordered to evacuate the area. At least 5 people have been killed and more than 1,000 structures destroyed. Belle Puri has more.
It's a hurricane of fire. The winds are powerful, the flames are ferocious. The rush to safety is crucial.
There were flames on either side of us. The car was very quickly getting smoky. We had wet towels over our faces.
Multiple fires across some of California's most exclusive neighborhoods are 0% under control.
We watched the mountain go, and we tried to, watch the embers come, and there wasn't many of them until houses down here started catching. And then it started coming over to this block. And tell you, I've been here 47 years. I grew up on this block. I saw the other altitude fires, and it was nothing like this.
The largest of the fires broke out Tuesday morning near Pacific Palisades. 30,000 people have been forced from their homes.
We got in the car to go, and then all the cars were abandoned, so I had nowhere to go, so I just had to get out of my car and start walking. The smoke is so bad.
Up to 10,000 households and 13,000 structures are threatened.
There's trees down that have crushed cars and on top of houses, and the fire line's 8 blocks from our home.
California has declared a state of emergency.
The National Weather Service has predicted a continued red flag weather event with strong winds and low humidities, placing all residents of Los Angeles County in danger.
The fires were sparked by a combination of dry conditions and dangerously high-speed winds.
Prolonged droughts have meant that the ecosystems are primed for fire, and when you get hot, dry, windy conditions plus an ignition, the Santa Ana winds blow from the desert towards the ocean, and they carry with them fires when they do start.
By midday, the Los Angeles fires had already burned nearly 93 square kilometers of property, and the winds and flames show no signs of letting up. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Israeli military says it's recovered the remains of one of the hostages abducted by Hamas. They say the body of Yosef al-Zayatni was recovered in an underground tunnel in southern Gaza. Hamas militants took the Arab-Israeli man and 3 of his children during their deadly attack in October 2023. 2 of his kids were released in a prisoner swap the following month. Israeli officials say they had also found evidence that raised, quote, serious concerns for the life of the man's son, suggesting the 23-year-old may have also died in captivity. Today's grim discovery comes as Israel and Hamas are considering a ceasefire deal. It would see an end to the fighting in Gaza and the release of the remaining 100 or so hostages. Israel believes many of those individuals are already dead. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attended a ceremony in the Toronto area marking the anniversary of the 2020 downing of Flight PS 752 in Iran.
We need to make sure that no one ever forgets your loved ones. No one ever forgets what the Iranian regime did on that horrific morning 5 years ago.
After the tragedy, Canada established January 8th as the National Day of Remembrance for victims of air disasters. The Ukraine Airlines passenger plane was shot down by 2 Iranian missiles shortly after taking off from Tehran. All 176 people were killed. Among them were 55 Canadian citizens and 30 permanent residents. Canada, along with the UK, Sweden, and Ukraine, have vowed to hold Iran accountable for the tragedy. Still ahead, why warm Chinook weather can lead to headaches for some. That story and more when we return after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. New research shows a dramatic increase in the number of children who are nearsighted and in need of glasses to see distances. Increased screen time may seem like the obvious reason, but there's more to the trend. Mike Crawley takes a closer look.
Keep watching that H. Let me know when it goes blurry, okay?
It's eye exam time for 8-year-old Aiden Chen.
I can't see.
Here at the Waterloo Eye Institute and at clinics like it around the world, optometrists are seeing the growing prevalence of myopia, or nearsightedness, among kids.
Myopia has actually increased dramatically during the periods of COVID, and if it continues on the trajectory, it will hit about 50% in 2050.
You might think the reason for this is perfectly clear: increased screen time, right? Turns out that's not the whole picture.
It's anything that we're doing up close, so it doesn't have to just be screens, it could be reading a book, everything like that.
Thank you.
The research shows a big predictor of childhood myopia is spending too much time indoors.
When we're outside, we're looking far away, so we're relaxing our eyes.
Studies have shown much less myopia among children who spend 2 hours per day outdoors.
It's believed to be related to the intensity of light. So outdoors, in sunshine or even on an overcast day, the lighting is much brighter than what we can do indoors.
Those 2 hours don't have to be consecutive.
Some studies suggest even making sure that the kids go out for recess is really important. And even walking to school.
Of course, outdoor time can take some extra effort during a Canadian winter. This outdoor education centre in Toronto welcomes kids year-round, a welcome break from the classroom.
It makes me feel tired and my eyes start hurting around here.
If you didn't finish coloring it the other day.
When kids are indoors, bright lighting helps.
Blink a few times and they'll tell you when to hold open.
Canadian optometrists recommend children have at least one eye exam before they start school, then from age 6 onward, have their vision checked annually. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Waterloo, Ontario.
When Chinooks descend on Alberta in the winter, many people enjoy the warm westerly winds. But for others, the dramatic temperature fluctuation is a headache, literally. Ted Henley has more.
For some, seeing a Chinook arch in the sky and feeling the warm wind blow can be a welcome break from the cold of winter. For others, it's a pain, literally.
Usually you feel some kind of pressure, and it's just like a headache that is right in the front, that you know that the weather is changing.
It's only during winter, like the change of weather, the change of temperature, especially if there's like a big splash of temperature change, like from, let's say, -10 to 1.
And while walking around without a jacket on can be nice, for some, the resulting migraines due to the weather change can even lead to missed work days.
With this bluebird sky, it's kind of a price you pay a little bit, and yeah, you kind of just deal with the cold and the headaches when they come.
One neurologist who has been researching headaches for decades says the pain is associated with a drop in barometric pressure. Some may feel it the day of a Chinook, others could feel it the day before. Dr. Becker says researchers have noticed migraine attacks tend to happen when the weather pressure change is combined with other triggers, like stress, a change in sleep patterns, or certain foods.
Red wine is probably the most powerful dietary migraine trigger known to man. And so I don't really question that one myself.
He says keeping a headache diary is the best way to learn about triggers, adding if that doesn't help, discussing medication options with your doctor may be needed before the next Chinook arrives. Ted Henley, CBC News, Calgary.
Riley's back now, and while we are enjoying some warmer weather, it also means for some slippery conditions in a lot of places. If you're out walking the dog, possibly, or just out getting a nice walk in during this weather, be careful.
Yeah, and it's the roller coaster in temperatures, close to freezing, then we're dipping below, and then we get back up there. So lots of freeze thaw happening in the next week or so.
We don't want to complain because it's nice that it's warmer.
Yeah.
Just be careful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to take you to Southern California because we have seen, as you saw earlier in the program, some very strong Santa Ana winds that have been really fueling some wildfires in the region. Some very devastating images coming out of California. I wanted to show you some of the peak wind gusts from today. And it's when you see some of these blues and the red colors that are signifying wind gusts over 100 kilometers an hour. So Santa Monica getting a wind gust this afternoon of 67. The Mojave Valley into the desert getting a wind gust close to 100 kilometers an hour. So here's what's happening big picture. So we have an area of high pressure just south of the Canada-U.S. border combined with an area of low pressure off into Mexico. That is funneling a lot of air into this very narrow area of the mountain ranges here. And what's that is doing is pushing some of this compressed warm air right through some of the canyons, some of the valleys, and really driving up those wind speeds and pushing that close off into the Pacific Ocean. So once you get some of these very strong Santa Ana wind gusts, it doesn't take a lot to start a real big raging wildfire in this region. So that's just sort of an explainer on what's happening and what's causing some of these very strong winds in parts of the United States. Back here at home, we are looking at some snow as we get through the morning hours. Even some lingering flurries into the afternoon hours tomorrow. This is Mo. Thank you, Colleen and Rebecca, for sending this picture in. You can send yours to talkback@cbc.ca. We'll see our winds picking up here in southern Manitoba tomorrow. In Winnipeg, -2 by the afternoon hours. Some peaks of sunshine, northwest winds 20 gusting to 40. And then we'll start to see things falling back again as we get later into the evening hours. So overnight temperatures look like this. -7s into the Brandon region, -4 in Dauphin. Temperature rises to -7 by tomorrow morning in Winnipeg, and temperatures in the Interlake even rising through the overnight hours. Still a bit of snow yet to come through parts of northern Manitoba, looking at temperatures again starting in the -single digits by lunchtime even for Flin Flon or for the Pas, Grand Rapids, Norway House. Bit of cloud cover, still some lingering flurries into north central and northeastern Manitoba. -16 tomorrow afternoon in Thompson. Into southern Manitoba, -single digits tomorrow, getting close to freezing again in the western side of the province in Brittany, looking at temperatures close to freezing in Winnipeg as well.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
It's a building block of language. Learning the alphabet is the first step to learning how to read and write. Many of us are familiar with the alphabet song and, of course, its rhyme. However, some kindergarten kids at a Winnipeg elementary school have been learning their letters through a new version of the classic ABC song. CBC community reporter Shanalee Vidal brings us this story.
So I'm Miss Wozni. This is my kindergarten class at Westgrove School in Pembina Trail School Division. G says g, g, g. H says ha, ha, ha. Are you guys ready to sing the alphabet song? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So the new version that we use, it has a little gap between the N and the O. So instead of LMNOP super quickly, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q. We just split it up so it's L, M, N, O, P, Q, and it keeps the tune of the original song. Now I never will forget how to sing the alphabet. So we've seen a lot more letter recognition, so being able to name the letters. And then our ultimate goal is not only for them to recognize, oh, that's a G, but the G says g, 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 and that's gonna help them learn how to read, how to write.
Sing the new alphabet song with me.
I saw it on Instagram. I'm fairly certain that's where I saw it. I follow a lot of other early years educators. Okay, good job, my friends. And I just thought that that might be something that would really help my students, especially we've been seeing kids coming into kindergarten with less and less exposure from home or from daycare, especially post-COVID when a lot of families were stuck at home. And then we've seen an increase in language processing disorders and delays. Here we go. A, B, C. But then the students who are struggling a little bit more, or our English language learners who it's not their first language, it just kind of helps them have a little bit of an easier time figuring out the names of all the English letters. O, P, Q, R-S-T. It's the same melody, it's the same song, so even if we sing it this way at school, a lot of the kids might even go home and sing it the original way, and it doesn't really make a difference, I think, if they can recognize all the letters. There's nothing wrong with singing the original, and then parents can still engage with them. The parents still know it, they can sing along. It's just kind of a tool that I use in the room to help our students that need that little bit of extra time. Now I struggle a little bit more to sing the old version. I'm definitely more used to the new one now, so I was trying to think in my head as I sang the old one how it goes.
Do you want to try it again and we'll sing the old part at the end?
Yeah.
Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me?
Good job, sweetheart. That was so good.
Still ahead, it was quite the Christmas gift for a BC couple. How they got to see pictures of their big day for the very first time decades later. We're back right after this.
All right, here's a look at your 7-day forecast, looking at -2 in Winnipeg tomorrow afternoon. A few lingering flurries after some light snow overnight. Then we're back down into -13, which is actually seasonal for this time of the year for Friday. -9 for Saturday. Then we drop back down into the deep freeze into next week. And yes, we're back up to -1 again by Wednesday. So that's what I mean by a little bit of a roller coaster of temperatures over the next week.
No kidding.
Penticton, BC couple that has been married for more than 50 years got quite the gift this past Christmas. After their wedding back in 1968, the Sharmans couldn't afford to pay for their photos.
But now, 56 years later, they got to see pictures of their big day for the first time.
Got a text from my girlfriend, Sandra Farnick, who is the president of the museum in Enderby. And she said in the text, Margie, have you got your original wedding pictures? And I said, no, Sandy. I said, we were never, ever able to pick them up because we didn't have any money. She says, well, I'm looking at them. And I said, what? So she texted me the pictures, and I texted her back and I said, Sandy, I've never seen these pictures. Where did they come from? The museum in Enderby got an envelope that said Towers Sharman wedding, July 20th, 1968. And Sandy just happened to be volunteering that day. She looks at that pictures and she said, that's Barry and Margie's wedding pictures.
Because she was one of the bridesmaids.
Sandy was one of the bridesmaids. My sister was the maid of honor, and she passed away just last year. So that picture was so emotional to see. And
then she was just beside herself with joy. She was very, very pleased. And we're going to have them framed properly and put them where we can see them, because we haven't seen them for over 56 years. I couldn't believe how in the picture of the whole wedding party that the photographer had us not smile. There wasn't a smile in the group.
None of us were smiling.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. She took a beautiful wedding picture, and I was just so happy that she picked me. And 56 years later, and plus, we're still going strong. So I guess she made the right choice.
I can't even imagine what an incredible memento for them to now have.
And I bet they remember that day like yesterday.
I love
after seeing the pictures.
I love that. There's no smiles in it either. But I'm sure one of the happiest days of their life still. Incredible memento. We love seeing that wonderful story out of Penticton. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe out there.